Hey everyone, this is Evgeny and we're back in our series LangChain Unpacked. So the place where we're watching what new LangChain brought us in October 2025. Previously we checked what the middleware is as a concept, and I even showed you how to implement your middleware human in the loop. And today we continue this journey, and our goal would be to look at summarization concept, not the concept, but how can you implement summarization using middleware, built-in middleware in LangChain. And before we dive into the details, I wanted to mention that this video also, as usual, is supervised by angry cats. So you have to check what are those. Link is there, the merch is there, please do check it. Alright, so we are in the lesson, and today, as I mentioned, we are talking about summarization and how you can apply this using middlewares. Like basically in the previous sessions in lections in LangGraph, I think it was advanced or introduction, we saw already how summarization works, and now we are going to check how it works using middlewares. So what do we have here? First, let me apply some imports first, and my idea would be instead of trying to simulate any chatbot with a lot of messages, let's try to implement something real, and I would propose that we are using real MCP servers. So it's kind of, you have a chatbot which gains some information from MCP server, and this will be LangChain documentation page. By the way, this is something also you can install in your agent system like Windsurf, for example, or Cursor. We are going to use this MCP server as a tool that agent would use to answer our user questions. So what do we have here? We have a configuration for MCP server, and you can copy paste it, and again you can send it to any editor or agent you're working with, and so on, right? But we are loading it here. We are loading a list of all the tools, and also we are defining our system prompt, everything in one place. And for double checking, let's take a look at LangChain doc tools, what it has. Well, basically I know that this is a single tool provided here, and it allows you to search across the documentation by LangChain. So this will be a real network call to LangChain website. And basically, let's start from the very simplest example where we don't have any middlewares like the basic React agent using but our MCP tool already. And it's classical representation of it. We used to that already, okay? And just to demonstrate how it works, we are not going to spend time on chatting with it. I prepared a list of questions, and what we will be doing, we will be firing a question from the list to the agent, get a response, then fire another question, another one, until we have finished our conversation. So this way we would have a lot of kind of cycles going in circles and asking and answering questions. All right, so this is the list we're going to reuse across the whole today's session. And well, it's time to give it a try. And what we have here, we have an agent. This is baseline messages, baseline agent here, and we have list of messages. So what will happen, we start a new session here. We have our baseline messages. This is the final result, and then we are going loop it in cycle for all user questions, and then we just basically invoke an agent with our message. So we are kind of simulating the normal conversation here, right? So for each new message, we ask the same agent, we collect a list of messages, so it's growing over the time, and then we see the result. And there are 28 messages here, so if you want, we can take a look at that. This really huge list. And what do we have here? As the first human message comes, and then a tool call for search documentation by LangChain. And look at that, the response already is really huge, and it's not something really synthetic. This is the real response, like if you created an agent, or this is what's happening in your cursor, for example. This kind of lengthy answers you have from this MCP tool. And it's a real life example, and agent should be able to work with it. But it's a lot of information. The single response is so huge. Look at that. Right, and then we have a next question asked, and so another tool call, and again, like kind of really huge snippet of text here coming from MCP, and this happens over and over again for every turn in the conversation. So AI generates the short answer based on that, and then the user asks another question and another tool call, because the agent itself is not aware of the the way how LangChain works, it searches all the time in MCP tool for answers. And look at that, it's really really huge conversation here, very lengthy one, right? And this is when we can try to run the summarization and using this middleware and summarize it at the end. So we can see some benefits because the message thread is not growing anymore. We are not feeling to limitations of context window, for example, for the model. It's easier for agent would be also to recognize the intention of the user if it's not the information is not overwhelming about everything, right? So it's a really good idea to shorten this list somehow to more compact version, and summarization is the way we can do it. And basically what you need to understand about how to configure summarization middleware here, you have two maybe important points which you have to think about. It's the first one, when to trigger it, and basically, so what is the event when the middleware wants to cut, to compress your message thread? This is the one point, and another one, which method used to compress it. And basically we're going to use token limitations, so like this one, but it's more broadly configurable thing here, like you can say how many messages should triggering the summarization and compacting it. Or it could be a combination of several conditions, right? For example, it could be tokens, or it could be number of messages, or even could be fractions. So for example, if your context window is occupied by 80%, then it's time to do the summarization. This approach is so you can see, for example, in Cloudy Code or other agents where they stop processing your requests and start compressing the message thread. So this is the fraction thing, and you can combine them in different combinations, right? And for the strategy, it's the same thing. Like you can say like keep some messages, some number of tokens, etc. But today we're going to use the very easy way, and this one. So I'm creating a new middleware, and its name is Summarization Middleware. It comes from LangChain. So what do we have here? We define trigger, as I mentioned already, and we are defining as 2000 tokens. After that, there should be compression happening. And I want this thread to keep only last 4 messages. So this is 2 things that are very important here. And the rest is the same. So let's compile it and see, maybe the graph will be different right now. It should be different, but let's check it. And just take a look at that. We have another node here, summarization middleware before model. So what's happening? It starts here. Probably the model compares at the beginning. The message list is very small. It's a single user message. It goes to the model, processes it, can go to tools, for example, go back to the middleware, and before passing the model, it can at some point and checks that the message conversation is too huge and will perform the compacting it, summarizing it here, and then pass it back to model. And this is the cycle now with this summarization middleware in between. And we're going to run the same kind of question. We have the same user questions, the same strategy here. We start a new thread, and we're just invoking our summary agent this time. Everything is the same, just we do have this middleware in the middle. And here we are, look at that. Previously we had 28 messages, and now we have only 6, so it's much less than previously. And let's check the output, like what happened there in the reality. And look at that, the first one, we have a human message, which is kind of summarization one, so it's not from the human, it's from this middleware. And it starts with, here's a summary of the conversation to date, and it says that, okay, LangChain is a framework for developing application using large language models and featuring something and a lot of stuff around LangChain, right? But it was compacted, it was summarized to this very short paragraph. And then the execution continues, like we do again the tool call search, tool call returns something back, and this too should be in pair, so it's good way, good work, middleware, thank you. Nothing is lost here. And the conversation finishes till the end, right? So it works, but maybe if you are really curious about building a real-life system, you can see the drawback of this approach, because basically it's a conversation, right? And if you take a look at the unpacked conversation, the very lengthy one, then the majority of the data comes from MCP server. There's a lot of text. And when we're summarizing it, well, it's not clear, right, what should be summarized, and this majority of text kind of pushes the idea of what the conversation is about. But it's not the case, right? It's not about this summarizing what MCP server returns to, because if you look at that, it's generated by answers from MCP server. Like, this is about framework for developing, but it's not the point of the conversation. That's my point, right? So you need to be very picky here and think about what you need to do and how you can improve it. Like, for example, for real life application, this is really drawback because it's not a conversation at all, not a summary of the conversation, right? It's summary of MCP results, maybe. Is it then useless, this middleware? Well, no, you have some specific ways. Let's call this a specific state. It's not a chatbot, it's kind of an agent, and it's heavy loaded with external content from MCP servers. And there is a way how to fix this issue, and it's called, you can practically define your own system message for summarization, and I will show you how to do this. So first of all, we have to define our summary prompt, and look at that. It's a normal prompt for the model LLM, and the crucial point here is that we are explicitly saying that you have to focus only on human messages, right? You still should take into account the other messages, like assistant or tool messages, but it's only kind of clue about the user's intent, but mostly your main point of information is human messages. And then you can play with this around and create some funny things, like, for example, we're asking to produce 3 sections, and we even trying to push the model to predict. For example, it's not part of the conversation, but we were telling model, please predict what user wants to understand, wants to know, and based on that, what could be the user's next to, like, several steps. And this will guide you your response in the right direction, we are telling the model. So this one, right? And then we are passing the list of conversation, like this list of the messages, and providing the summary. And having this custom summary prompt, we can set it here in our summarization middleware for summary prompt. So, like, we have different kind of summarizations. Let's give it a try and see, right? The same graph, nothing is different here. Like, summarization middleware has now a different prompt, but the graph stays the same. And we run exactly the same example with exactly the same list of user requests or questions. And we are there, look at that, we still have 6 messages, so this is expectable, right? The number of messages to stay the same, just summarization should be different. And if we check what's there, look at that. Again, user human message, and here's a summary of conversation to date, and then we have user storyline. The developer feels like they're adrift at a sea of complexity with LangChain. They're trying to connect the LangChain with LangGraph, and frustration is evident, so some even psychological facts about the user. And my intention was, I wanted to grasp the fundamental concepts of LangGraph. I wanted to clarify some integration things, and I had a strong desire to see practical examples here. And list of likely my next steps. So this information is much more useful here, right, for the chatbot or for the system, because it drives the intention of the agent next time, like, what is my intention, how to help me better. And it's not specifically about summarization, but this is really cool hint tool you can use in your agents. That's the beauty of that. Well, and the rest is the same. Just, I think the answer is a bit different. It should be much more focused on my intention, like what I wanted to know and to learn. Alright, that's it for the video. You showed the concept how you can very easily, using middleware, implement your own summarization. You saw some cases where it could be useful and why it's useful. And it was me, Evgeny. Thanks a lot for sticking with me till the end of the video. In the next videos of this series, we will continue looking into built-in middlewares that LangChain provides us. Thank you. Take care and bye-bye.